Hello and welcome to another episode of the Millionaire Mentor Method podcast with me, your host, Krystal, also known as the most famous woman in the world. So today I want to address a headline that I'm sure many of you have been seeing lately, which is the BRICS countries moving to establish a world reserve currency that is not the US dollar. And I'm sure you can imagine that this is not such good news for the United States, and that's why it's making such headlines, although this has been emerging for years now, including the fact that China has been slowly starting to ditch the dollar since 2010. So this is not new, but it is becoming more and more of a reality, especially now with crypto, with blockchain technology. And I'm going to get around to how that technology is impacting the BRICS initiative as well. So what is BRICS? BRICS is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And it originally was not formally recognized as an organization, but now it is formally recognized as what's called an intergovernmental organization. And these nations have been meeting on semi-annual bases in summits and conferences to propose mutually beneficial initiatives and agreements. The most important one of those being that they are colluding. I don't want to use colluding. It's not, I don't know if that's the correct word, but they are starting to create their own world reserve currency that is no longer the dollar. So just a little bit of background. The US dollar has been the world's reserve currency since 1944. And this was with the Bretton Woods Agreement, which was after World War II. So prior to 1944, the US dollar was not the world's reserve currency. And what is a reserve currency? Just to educate ourselves a little bit. So when you have the entire world trading goods and services, everybody needs a common currency in order to be able to trade with each other. So this is the same problem that would occur, let's say, if you were an early settler to the United States and you came here and you saw that the native people that were already here were trading in, let's say that they were trading in hides and food. Well, let's say that they had bear skins and you had wheat. Well, how many bear skins equals a bushel of wheat, right? So we may remember learning this stuff back in elementary school, maybe not. But so that is why things such as gold coins or silver coins, or today, the US dollar, are used as a medium of exchange, because otherwise it's going to be very hard to, for example, try to figure out how many oranges is a iPhone 14 worth, right? We can't trade oranges for iPhones. And this is a global situation because, of course, the world trades, every country trades with each other, and we need a system to be able to transact with each other. So that has been the US dollar since 1944. And of course, as you can imagine, it is extremely beneficial for any country to become the world's reserve currency. It puts you foremost in power. And importantly, you can pay other nations for goods and services with your currency. And since we got off of the gold standard and our dollar is now no longer pegged to gold, so it's just fiat money, which means by decree, and we can, even though we shouldn't, but we can literally print as much as we want. So the world has been giving us goods and services, and we have been giving them a slowly devaluing dollar. So a dollar that is eroding in value over time. And so a little bit more backstory so we can understand why is this important and how is this going to affect me, right? So the British pound, for example, was the reserve currency of the world and prior to the US dollar, I believe. And that lasted for 105 years. So historically, reserve currencies last approximately 100 years. And the reason why it lasts approximately 100 years is it has to do with the cycle of civilizations, which have to do with, it actually also corresponds to human psychology and demographics and simple generational demographics. But basically, and if you want to know more about this, you can look up Ray Dalio, who has an amazing YouTube video on the rise and fall of nations. But basically, Ray Dalio is saying that, and this is not really him inventing it, it's just a discovery, it's an observation of how civilizations rise and fall in power. He says that during a country's decline in power, they only have about two choices, and those two choices are default on their debt or print more money. And according to the cycle of the rise and fall of nations, according to Ray Dalio, we happen to be on the declining side of our power curve. Importantly, the United States bullies the world in so many ways, not just through military might and power, but also economically. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the US dollar is the world reserve currency. For example, if one country wants to trade with another country, they have to use US dollars. And in order for that transaction to be settled, it needs to go through something that's called the SWIFT system. And to make it very simple for all of us to understand, the SWIFT system is controlled by the United States, and this is the gatekeeper of settling transactions across the world. And you can see an example of the United States bullying tactics with what happened in Russia when the United States imposed sanctions on Russia by removing their ability to access the SWIFT system. But what did Putin do in this case? He went around it by doing such things as trading in gold. So as it stands today, BRICS and many other countries are finding ways to sidestep having to trade in US dollars. Other countries are saying enough of the bullying, and other countries want a global reserve currency that is pegged to a real commodity, such as gold. And additionally, when we experience inflation, other countries suffer as well because of their reliance on the US dollar. Besides Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, there are tons of other countries applying for membership into BRICS. These are countries such as Argentina, Nicaragua, Algeria, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, and many, many others. As of today, approximately 80% of the world's population is coming together in a mutually beneficial way to get out of having to trade and transact in US dollars. The most important country in the BRICS nations is China. And for those of you that don't know, the Chinese economy is set to outpace the US economy in terms of gross domestic product in the next decade or so. And this is where I said crypto and blockchain technology is playing a pivotal role in this shift in the world. So the Chinese digital yuan may be the next world reserve currency, and that is essentially a crypto token that will be based on a distributed ledger. And they're building out the infrastructure for this right now. And many experts are speculating that if the Chinese digital yuan gathers steam by implementing such things as auditing and full transparency, then it may just become the next world reserve currency. And there's a couple of very key indicators and newsworthy headlines that show us that something very historical is happening right now. The first and foremost of which is that the US is buying more gold than it ever has since 1967. And this is actually the second largest gold acquiring event in the United States in history. So what does that tell us? Well, you don't have to be an expert and you don't have to be an economist to understand that if the United States is now hoarding physical gold, that can only mean one thing, which is that those in the know are bracing for impact. Other key historical events that should awaken us from our slumber is that countries that have had centuries-old you could call them non-cooperation agreements, such as Iran and Iraq, Iran and Saudi Arabia, are now cooperating. For example, Iran and Saudi Arabia just put embassies in each other's countries for the first time. And all of this and all of the countries that are in BRICS and applying for BRICS, they're coming together to say no more to the United States, no more of the bullying. And circling back around to the fact that when the US dollar experiences inflation, other countries suffer greatly, is the fact that our government is doing wild things, such as further devaluing the dollar by funding Ukrainian pensions instead of funding our own pensions here for US citizens. So what does all of this global upheaval mean to you and me? Well, we need to focus on the things that we can control in our micro environment. The number one thing being, you shouldn't be saving large amounts of money in cash. As they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Or in this case, do as the United States government is doing and go buy some gold. So this means if you have 10, 20, 30,000, or I don't know how much money you have in savings, it should absolutely not be sitting in a savings account at a bank. A portion of your savings should be going to wise investments, such as cash flowing assets. And by cash flowing assets, I mean things such as real estate, rental property, or stocks that pay dividends, and real commodities that store real value, such as gold and silver. And does that mean go out and buy gold and silver coins and just stuff them under your mattress? Well, maybe. But of course, that actually doesn't mean you have to store gold and silver bars under your mattress or in a safe at your home. There are storage facilities that thankfully do all of that for you. Other things we can do to brace for impact is to make sure that we have a consistent source of income. So if we don't have cash flowing assets yet, we need to work on acquiring them. And the best way to work on acquiring cash flowing assets is to remember that income when you're first starting out is key. And that seems common sense, right? So make sure that if you have not started your own business yet, or if that's maybe not something you want to do right now, it is perfectly fine and highly advised that you get as high a paying job as you possibly can, earn extra money in creative ways. Importantly, educate yourself by listening to podcasts such as this, by reading books that may seem a little bit dry, but can literally change your life on finance. Learn how to budget and track your spending. Cut back on things like multiple subscription services. Importantly, this is the time to get gritty. And by get gritty, I mean take a second job if you have to. Take a night job. And not even if you have to, because we want to be prepared before the S hits the fan, right? And so I don't know if it's going to or if it is not. But what I do know is the warning signs are all there. Our dollars are not going nearly as far as they used to. There's massive layoffs all over the country. It's harder than ever to get high-paying work, and interest rates are rising on top of all of that. So as they used to say, now is the time to batten down the hatches, get educated, and get ready. Thanks so much, guys. This episode was intense, and I really appreciate you guys staying with me on this. And I'm going to be following this closely and updating you guys in the best possible way that I can and try to give you guys advice on how to prepare before everyone else. And as always, if you found this podcast helpful, please go visit our website at millionairementormethod.com. We're building an amazing community of people just like you and me, go-getters, strivers, entrepreneurs, people who want to get out of the rat race, people who want to learn and support each other. Our community is based on the absolutely priceless mentor-mentee relationship. And we are attempting to build these relationships for a lifetime, not just a one and done type of thing. So when you join the mentor community, we are attempting to match mentors and mentees in a mutual beneficial relationship that can last the course of a lifetime. A lot of our value that we give is absolutely free because for me as a female entrepreneur, and especially when I was in my 20s and no one believed in me and I had no support and I had no community and I had no network, I really could have benefited from something like this. And that is why I'm building this right now. And I'm building this so that we can lean on other people like us. Maybe your family doesn't support you. Maybe you don't have a lot of friends that understand your ambition. Maybe you don't have the type of friends that give you good financial advice. All of those things can be found in our community, and it takes you and me to build it. So please do visit the website. Again, that's millionairementormethod.com. My name is Krystal Kali, and you can find me at my funny new domain, which is themostfamouswomanintheworld.com. It used to be krystalkali.com, but I am right in the middle of a strange and wild and wacky experiment to see if I can attach my name and image to the most famous woman in the world and somehow trick AI into believing that is true. I don't know if I'm actually going to keep this experiment going or not, but for now, that is my name across all social media. So you can Google Krystal Kali, Krystal Khali, or go to my website. All right, guys, until next time, thanks so much. And remember to demonstrate excellence and bravery.
The information provided in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice, investment advice, or medical advice. The host is not a financial advisor nor a medical doctor or licensed therapist. Any financial or medical decisions made based on the information in this podcast are made at the listener's own risk. It is recommended that listeners consult with licensed professionals such as CPAs, financial advisors, and licensed physicians before making any investment or medical decisions. The host and creators of this podcast accept no responsibility or liability for any loss or damages incurred as a result of the information provided in this podcast.